What if everything you've ever been told about being too much was actually a clue that you're something extraordinary? Maybe you've heard it all before. You're too sensitive. You overthink everything. Why can't you just let things go? But what if I told you? Those weren't flaws. What if they were signs that you're wired differently and more deeply than most people around you? Carl Jung, on one of the most influential minds in psychology, once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But let's be honest, becoming who you truly are isn't always celebrated, is it? Especially when the real you doesn't quite fit into society's neat little boxes. If you've ever felt out of place, like your mind dives deeper than surface-level talk, like your emotions move through you, like waves too big to control, like you see things others can't quite name, you're not broken. You're not too much. In fact, according to Jung's research, you might belong to a rare category of people with what he called differentiated consciousness, a way of seeing, feeling, and experiencing the world that most never reach. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through 8 signs that you may possess this rare psychological type. By the end, you might stop trying to fix who you are and start honoring it. So take a deep breath and stay with me, because once you see yourself clearly through Jung's lens, there's no going back to who you were pretending to be. Have you ever felt something so deeply that it overwhelmed you? Not just emotionally, but almost physically. Like a wave that moved through your whole being, not just your heart, but your chest, your breath, your thoughts, everything. If so, you're not alone, and you're not broken. You may just have what Carl Jung described as emotional depth, a rare and often misunderstood form of sensitivity that isn't weakness, but a sign of profound inner intelligence. You see, Jung didn't believe emotions were random or chaotic. He found that certain people experience what he called affect-toned complexes. In simple terms, your emotions don't just pass through, they stay, they echo, and sometimes they transform you. You don't just feel joy, you embody it. You don't just feel grief, it colors your entire internal world. A single conversation, a moment of silence, even a look from someone, can open floodgates that others barely notice. And because of this, you often pick up on the emotional weather in a room before anyone else does. You sense what's not being said. You feel the tension under someone's smile. You know when something's off, even if no one else acknowledges it. But here's the hard part. Society isn't built to understand this kind of depth. You've probably been called too emotional, too intense, or told that you overreact. And maybe over time, you started to wonder if something was wrong with you. You tried to dial it down to not cry so easily, to laugh a little less, to stop getting your hopes up or falling too hard. You might have even told yourself to get over it before you were truly ready. But Jung warned us, when people with deep emotional wiring suppress what they feel, it doesn't go away. It splits. He called it psychological splitting, where part of you still knows the truth, but another part tries desperately to fit in. That internal conflict can drain your energy cloud, your confidence, and leave you emotionally exhausted. And the worst part, you start living disconnected from your true self, trading your emotional wisdom for emotional survival. But what if I told you this depth isn't a flaw to fix, but a compass to follow? Jung believed that those who feel deeply are equipped with a kind of psychological radar, one that allows them to sense subtle shifts in energy, meaning, and authenticity. You are tuned to frequencies most people filter out. And while that may feel isolating, it's also your superpower. Think about it. How many times have you felt something long before it made sense? How many times have you helped someone through something because you just knew they weren't okay, even when they said they were? That's not drama. That's emotional brilliance. So here's a question worth asking. What if, instead of shrinking your feelings to make others comfortable, you started honoring them as truthful guides? What if you stopped apologizing for caring too much and recognized that your depth is exactly what this emotionally starved world needs? The goal isn't to shut off your emotions, it's to learn how to hold them without being drowned by them. And in a moment, I'll share the exact technique Jung used to help emotionally sensitive individuals turn this depth into power. But for now, if you've ever felt like you feel too much, remember this: you were never too much. They were just not ready to hold something this deep. Have you ever been told you ask too many questions? Not the kind of questions people expect, but the kind that pause a conversation, the ones that make people shift in their chairs. You're not satisfied with just what something is. You need to know why. Why do we do this? Why do we accept that? Why do we call this normal? If that sounds like you, then welcome. You might have what Carl Jung called a transcendent function, a rare cognitive trait that allows you to pierce through the surface of social conditioning and glimpse what lies beneath. Most people, Jung observed, live their lives unconsciously. They inherit beliefs. They follow rules they never chose. They chase goals that never truly belong to them. But you can't do that. You can't pretend the script makes sense if your soul knows it doesn't. You've likely been this way since childhood. Maybe you asked uncomfortable questions at dinner tables or noticed things no one wanted to talk about. Maybe you got labeled too intense or too serious, even though to you were just being honest. That's the thing about people with relentless curiosity. You don't just want to understand, you need to. You don't just scratch the surface. You dig. You excavate. You challenge the obvious. And while that's a powerful gift, it can also be lonely. Because when you question everything, you inevitably begin to threaten the comfort zones of those around you. You've probably seen it happen. You ask a simple, honest question. Why do we stay in jobs that drain us? Why do we pretend everything's fine when it's clearly not, and suddenly you're the problem? People accuse you of being negative or too analytical or just difficult. But what they don't realize is that your questions are not meant to tear things down. They're meant to wake things up. Carl Jung believed that people like you, the questioners, the seekers, the restless minds, serve a deeper purpose. You hold a mirror up to the unconscious patterns that others try to avoid. You're not being cynical. You're being psychologically honest. And in a world obsessed with comfort and convenience, honesty is often mistaken for rebellion. The truth is, your curiosity is what pushes humanity forward. Think about every major shift in history: social justice innovation, personal growth. None of it happened because people stayed silent and accepted what was handed to them. It happened because someone somewhere had the courage to ask, but what if we're wrong? So let me ask you this. Have you ever silenced your questions just to keep the peace? Have you ever dimmed your thoughts because the room wasn't ready for the truth? If so, you're not alone. But it's time to stop apologizing for your mind. Because curiosity, real, raw, unrelenting curiosity, is a rare form of wisdom. And those who carry it often feel like they don't belong. Until they realize they're not here to fit in, they're here to reveal. So the next time someone asks why you always need to know more, smile. And ask them this: why don't you? Have you ever felt like you had no choice but to stand on your own, not because you wanted to prove something, but because life gave you no other option? Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And for people like you, those who carry a deep, unshakable independence, that terrifying journey is exactly the one you've walked. Here's the truth no one tells you. Your independence wasn't born out of rebellion. It was born out of necessity. You didn't wake up one day and decide to stop depending on others. It happened over time. Maybe someone let you down one too many times. Maybe you realized that relying on others for your worth, your peace, or your future was a gamble you couldn't afford anymore. So you built yourself. You learned to be your own safety net, your own motivator, your own protector. And while the world may admire that strength from the outside, they rarely understand the emotional journey behind it. Carl Jung called this psychological process individuation, the path toward becoming a whole, integrated self. It's the moment you stop looking for someone else to complete you, because you've done the work to become complete on your own. But here's what makes it complicated. Your independence can be misunderstood. People assume you don't need anyone, that you're cold, distant, too strong for your own good. But the truth is, you've just learned often the hard way that losing yourself in someone else's shadow is the fastest path to self-abandonment. You know what it's like to shrink to silence your needs, to make yourself smaller so someone else could feel big. And you made a vow, even if silently, to never do that again. This kind of independence isn't armor. It's clarity. It's the quiet knowing that you don't want someone to save you. You want someone to stand beside you, to walk the path with you, not to carry you, not to control you, but to grow with you. And that distinction, it changes everything. Because when you've done the work of becoming whole, your standards change. You no longer chase love from a place of desperation. You choose it from a place of discernment. You no longer say yes to people who need you to be smaller so they can feel big. You've outgrown that version of yourself. Jung observed that truly independent people often attract two kinds of relationships, one that's deeply authentic and one that's quietly manipulative. The key is knowing which is which. So if you've ever been told you're too independent, smile. Because what they're really saying is, you're not easy to control. And in a world that profits off your self-doubt, that's one of the most powerful things you can be. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt something was off? No one said anything. Everyone was smiling. But deep down, you just knew someone was angry, something had happened, or something was being hidden. That's not paranoia. That's not overthinking. That's intuition, a form of deep inner knowing that Carl Jung recognized as a legitimate psychological function. He described it as perception via the unconscious meaning you pick up on things that others don't even consciously register. You're the kind of person who reads the silence between the words, who notices the slight hesitation in someone's voice, the micro-expression they couldn't control, the emotional shift in a room, even when no one else acknowledges it. It's like your nervous system is tuned to a frequency that most people can't hear. Some might call it psychic, but really it's psychological sensitivity operating at a very high level. You've probably been like this since you were young. Maybe you could sense when your parents were upset, even when they said everything was fine. Or you knew a friend needed help without them saying a word. Over time, this ability to sense and feel so much became second nature. But here's the shadow side of that gift: emotional exhaustion. Because when you're wired to feel the emotions of others so deeply, you often end up carrying them. You become what some call an emotional sponge, absorbing sadness, tension, anxiety that doesn't even belong to you. You're the one people vent to, the one who stays after everyone else has left, making sure someone's okay. You hold space for others effortlessly. But what happens when no one holds space for you? Jung warned that highly intuitive people, if they don't learn to set clear emotional boundaries, can become so focused on others that they forget to check in with themselves. You may become so attuned to what everyone else needs, you stop asking what you need. And when that happens, you lose your center. So let me ask you, when was the last time you tuned into your own emotional landscape? Not theirs. Not the room. Yours. Because your sensitivity isn't the problem. It's your superpower. But like any power, it needs protection. Jung taught that the key is psychological boundaries, the ability to sense without absorbing, to witness without drowning, to care without collapsing. If you resonate with this, you're not crazy, you're not weak, you're not too sensitive, you're intuitive, you're aware, you're rare. And in a noisy, distracted world, people like you are the ones who remind the rest of us what it means to truly feel. Have you ever sat in a room full of people, smiled politely, played along, and still felt like your soul was quietly screaming, "This isn't real"? That moment, when everything looks fine on the outside, but deep inside something feels hollow. If you've experienced that, you already understand this next sign. You can't fake it. You can't pretend shallow things matter when they don't. You don't chase approval, you chase meaning. Carl Jung observed that some people are psychologically incapable of living inauthentic lives. Not because they're trying to be different, but because their psyche demands truth. You're one of those people. You've probably tried to follow the script at some point. Maybe you did everything right. You got the job, smiled at the dinner party, stayed quiet when it would have been easier to speak your truth. And maybe it even worked for a while. But inside, that quiet ache grew louder. That whisper that said, "This isn't me." Jung warned that when you live out of alignment with your deeper nature, your mind rebels. He called them neurotic symptoms, anxiety, apathy, even depression, not because you're broken, but because your soul is trying to get your attention. It's saying, wake up. You weren't born to play a part. You were born to live your truth. Here's the challenge, though. Choosing meaning often means walking alone. It means letting go of relationships built on performance. It means risking judgment when you speak from your heart. It means asking what really matters to me, even when the answer makes no sense to the world around you. But here's the beauty: people like you are what Jung called evolutionary catalysts. You don't just live differently. You inspire others to question their own lives. When you refuse to settle for superficiality, you give others silent permission to do the same. Your authenticity creates ripple effects. Think about it. How many people have secretly admired your honesty, even if they didn't say it out loud? How many have felt braver because you were brave enough to step off the well-worn path? You're not here to fit in. You're here to wake people up. So the next time you feel torn between saying what's true and saying what's easy, pause. Remember who you are. You're not difficult. You're not dramatic. You're not too deep. You're aligned with something real, and in a world addicted to pretending, that is revolutionary. Have you ever looked around at the people, places, and patterns in your life and thought, this used to feel like home, but now it just feels small? If so, you're not broken, you're growing. One of the most painful and powerful parts of inner transformation is the moment you realize that your surroundings no longer match your soul, that the relationships, routines, or even dreams you once cherished now feel like clothes that don't quite fit. Carl Jung understood this experience deeply. He called it a psychological death and rebirth, a process where the version of you that was shaped by conditioning begins to fall away, so that your authentic self can emerge. And it's not always graceful. Sometimes it feels like grieving a past you didn't even know you were letting go of. The people who once got you don't anymore. The places that once gave you comfort now feel confining. You're not trying to be better than anyone. You've just changed. And that change can be incredibly lonely. Jung described this as the dark night of the soul, a period of existential loneliness, where everything familiar fades, but the new hasn't fully arrived. It's the space between who you were and who you're becoming. But here's what most people don't realize: this in-between is sacred. It's where you start building a life not out of habit, but out of truth. It's where you stop performing and start listening. It's where you stop shrinking to fit and start expanding to belong not everywhere, but somewhere real. Yes, it can be hard when people want the old version of you back, the one who was easier, more agreeable, more predictable. But you can't unknow what you now know. You can't unsee what you've awakened to. That door only swings one way. And the good news: once you walk through it, once you embrace your transformation, you begin to attract people, places, and experiences that feel like psychological resonance. You connect with others not through roles or expectations, but through truth, through presence, through soul. So if you're in the middle of this shift, if you're mourning old friendships, questioning your environment, or feeling disconnected from what used to matter, take heart. You're not lost. You're not behind. You're not crazy. You're evolving. And on the other side of this discomfort is something rare, a life built in alignment with who you really are, not who the world told you to be. Have you ever noticed how people open up around you? Even strangers, you weren't trying to fix them. You weren't giving advice. You were just there, fully present. And somehow, in your quiet company, they felt safe enough to unravel. That's not an accident. That's a gift. Carl Jung called it psychological holding space, the rare ability to create an emotional environment where others feel seen, not judged, heard, not hurried. It's not just about listening. It's about witnessing someone deeply and without agenda. If you carry this gift, you know how powerful and how exhausting it can be. You're the person others come to when they're unraveling. You sit with their stories, their silence, their shame. Not because you asked to, but because people feel something in you. A calm, a depth, a kind of emotional gravity. But here's the truth: most don't talk about while your presence is healing for others. It can quietly drain you if you're not careful. Jung warned about this. He observed that people with a profound presence often fall into what he called helper syndrome. You become the emotional anchor for everyone else and forget to ask for someone to anchor you. You hold space for others so often you start disappearing inside your own generosity. It's not that you don't want to help. You do. It's who you are. But over time, without boundaries, this gift becomes a trap. You become the unofficial therapist, the emotional caregiver, the strong one, even when you're running on empty. And eventually, you begin to feel invisible, like your only value is what you can give, not who you are. So if you've ever found yourself wondering, why do I feel so drained when I'm not even the one struggling, this might be why. But here's the good news: this gift doesn't need to break you. With awareness and boundaries, it can nourish you and others in equal measure. You don't have to stop caring. You don't have to harden your heart. You just have to learn to ask, is this mine to hold? Because not everyone deserves access to your emotional presence. Not everyone has earned the right to be held by your energy. And that's not cold, that's wise. Your presence is sacred. It changes people. But it was never meant to cost you yourself. So take a breath. Come back to center, and remember, the most powerful space you'll ever hold is the one you hold for you. Have you ever felt like you're meant for something, but you just can't put your finger on what that something is? It's not ambition. It's not about success or fame. It's deeper than that. A quiet, persistent pull inside you, like your soul is whispering. There's more to this life, and you're here for it. Carl Jung had a name for this experience. He called it an archetypal calling, a primal symbolic push from the unconscious urging you toward meaning, contribution, and transformation. And if you've ever felt that restless inner ache, like you were born for something bigger, even if it's unclear you're not imagining it, you're responding to something ancient, something sacred. But here's the hard part. That calling often doesn't come with clear instructions. It doesn't show up with a business plan or a 5-step strategy. It shows up as longing, as questions, as moments when everything around you seems fine, but somehow your heart still feels unsatisfied. And if you try to ignore it, Jung warned that denying this deeper sense of purpose can lead to what he called neurotic symptoms, anxiety, depression, a sense of spiritual emptiness. Because it's not just a dream you're pushing away. It's your own essence trying to reach you. You're not here just to get by pay bills and fit in. Your purpose, Jung believed, isn't just personal, it's transpersonal. That means your life's work is not just about you. It's about something bigger than you, a ripple effect that touches others, shapes culture, and contributes to the evolution of consciousness itself. Maybe you felt this in moments when you were completely aligned, when your heart, mind, and actions moved in the same direction. Maybe you've had flashes of clarity when you helped someone and felt more alive than ever. When you created something that felt like it came through you, not from you. That's not coincidence. That's a glimpse of the path. So what do you do when the calling is real but unclear? You start by listening, by staying open, by trusting the inner compass more than the outer map. You follow the energy, the pull, the resonance, even when you can't explain it to anyone else. Because purpose isn't found, it's remembered. It's uncovered, one choice, one moment of courage, one step toward alignment at a time. So if you've ever felt that nudge, that whisper of more, you're not crazy. You're not lost. You're being called. And the world doesn't need more people playing small. It needs more people like you who dare to follow that quiet voice even before it makes sense. So let's be clear about one thing. You were never too much, too sensitive, too intense, too curious, too different. The truth is, the world has just been too small for your depth. Carl Jung believed that people like you, those who feel deeply, question endlessly, and refuse to live on autopilot, are not here to fit in. You're here to lead, to awaken, to stand at the leading edge of human consciousness and show us what's possible when we live with soul, with purpose, with truth. Yes, it's lonely sometimes. Yes, you've been misunderstood. But that doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're rare. So now I want to hear from you. Which of the 8 signs spoke to your soul the most? Was it your emotional depth, your need for meaning? That unshakable sense of calling? Drop it in the comments below. Let's build a community of people who get it. And if someone in your life needs to hear this message, share this video with them. It might be the reminder they didn't know they needed. If this resonated, hit subscribe because we're just getting started. There's so much more to explore together, so much more to uncover about what makes you extraordinary. Remember, the world doesn't need you to shrink. It needs you to shine exactly as you are.